Hello everyone, Professor Philip Travis. History 448, the history of modern Russia. It is week 6. This week we are going to delve into life on the margins of Soviet society under Joseph Stalin. This week we're going to read chapter 4 and 5 from the Bader-Blom book, The Life in Stalin's Soviet Union book, chapter 4 and 5. These readings are not excessively long, but they're very, very fascinating readings because what these readings look at, the first one from chapter 4, examines crime in the Soviet Union. It is somewhat ironic, perhaps, that while the Soviet Union was a totalitarian state, that there was nonetheless a widespread concern in the Soviet Union with crime. And so in this reading, we will be examining the different types of crime in the Soviet Union, from issues of embezzlement of various monetary funds, illegal trading, from collectivized farms to banditry and effectively gang violence in the remote frontiers of the Soviet Union, and a number of other topics relating to crime during the period of the reign of Joseph Stalin, which ends, of course, with his death in 1953. Chapter 5 looks specifically at a subject that I'm sure all of you are somewhat aware of, and this is the subject of the gulags, the forced labor prison camps that really were expanded during the time of Joseph Stalin and became a brutal industry, not unlike some of the slave labor industries in Latin America during the period of the 1800s, in the sugar plantations of places like Brazil. These were brutal labor camps in which individuals, oftentimes who had been prosecuted of either a political crime or a very minor crime, were sent to remote work camps to undertake hard labor, and in many, many, many cases were worked to death. The gulags were really a fundamental part of the Soviet economy during the period of Joseph Stalin. And we are going to examine, in the reading from chapter 5, we're going to examine the rise of the gulag populations and the gulag work camps, and then ultimately we'll consider the conditions that people have to suffer from in these camps, and we will also consider the demise of the Stalinist nature of the gulag camps following his death in 1953. This week also, before I talk to you about the map you see here, this of course is a map of the Soviet Union. Before I talk to you a little bit about this map and connect it to some of our readings, we have a test this week. It's our midterm exam this week, and the midterm exam covers all material through this week. The exam will be available no later than the end of the day on Wednesday. You'll have till Sunday by midnight to complete it, and I will put some by the end of the day on Monday, I will give you some ideas for potential subject areas for the essay. So the exam, of course, is made up of multiple choice and true-false questions. There's also an essay, and in the essay, of course, I want to see you apply analysis and draw directly from the class readings as well as the class video lectures and so on. So I really want to see a good response. We'll be drawing on the subject material. Essays for this class you need to be pretty thorough, and the essay question will also ask you to sort of apply a certain level of analysis in responding to the question, again, relating to the material from week 1 through week 6. When you read, I hope everyone's been doing this, but a really good way to start, because I know we have a lot of reading and stuff, a good way to undertake reading for a course like this in such a way that can sort of facilitate success when it comes to studying. Use a highlighter. Make sure you read introductions of chapters very closely and conclusions very closely. I mean, we should read it all very closely, but the authors of works of history will usually give you a good idea of the significance and argument of an essay at the beginning and also at the end of it. So when you read, use a highlighter to draw out some of the more important items, some of the critical elements of the argument, and then some of the key sort of pieces of evidence that the author's using within that chapter to sort of demonstrate the overriding point of that particular chapter or essay. And then see if you use a highlighter, then when you go back to prepare for the test, you can just review those highlights. And it's amazing, if you use a highlighter, you can skim a chapter in a pretty short period of time, and it will do it'll do you a lot of favors when it comes to feeling like you're prepared for the test. If you haven't been doing this in preparation to this midterm exam, do it this week, because these 2 chapters are certainly on that exam, and then continue to do that as we move forward in the course towards the final. I'll get your paper proposals graded this week. Really looking forward to reading those. I think we're going to have, from some of the communications with some of you that have been about the papers, I think we're going to have some really good essays. And I hope that the information in the class is encouraging us to, think about what essay topics we might really be interested in writing about. So chapter 4 and 5, from Life in Stalin's Soviet Union, we're looking at Soviet society, sort of on the margins of Soviet society, the people on the margins of Soviet society, people that are associated with criminal activity in the USSR under Stalin, and the people that were sent to forced labor camps in the hundreds of thousands, by the way, during the period of time of Joseph Stalin in the Gulag labor camps. So we'll be looking at these two subjects, and we'll be considering these subjects from the standpoint of what does Soviet society at this time look like. So we're not just going to be focusing on sort of the political realities and decision making, but we're going to be kind of looking at the experiences of the people and how the experiences of the people under Stalin leads to a proliferation of certain types of criminal behavior, and how the experience of the Gulag was used in shaping the Soviet economy. And we need to think about, what does that say about the Soviet Union in its formation? The fact that penal labor, prison labor, was not just a part of the Soviet Union. I mean, it had a long history in Russian history as well, but a big difference was that during Stalin's 5-year plans, for example, the use of forced prison labor was actually a fundamental part of the Soviet economy. Okay, so that's what we're considering this week. Midterm exam this week. That'll be available by Wednesday. I'll give you some pointers for the essays or the essay on the test as well this week, and our reading chapter 4 and 5 from Life in Stalin's Soviet Union. Not long readings, but I think you will find it pretty intriguing. So this is a map of the Soviet Union, and so this map does include territories in the greater sort of Russian Soviet Empire. Of course, the countries over here like East Germany, Poland, for example, which were part of the greater Warsaw Pact states, are not formally in the map of the Soviet Union, but of course are over here. But this is a map of the Soviet Union at the time we're really thinking about right now, particularly coming out of the post-World War II period. And if you just imagine the expansion of these satellite states over here, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, ultimately the Czech Republic and Slovakia, East Germany, Poland, and so forth. And here's the Ukraine, Belarus, the Baltic states. And down here, of course, is Kazakhstan, and in the Caucasus area, countries like Georgia, for example, Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan right here. So I wanted to just give us a little bit of look at geography at this time. So first of all, the primary political centers of the Soviet Union, primary political centers of the Soviet Union were, of course, Leningrad, located here, Moscow, located here, and Stalingrad, which is located here. Now, some of you might immediately say, I don't recognize those names on a map today, and that's because a number of the cities of Russia have today had their names changed post-Soviet Union. So Stalingrad today is Volgograd. Leningrad has been returned to its original name of St. Petersburg. And this is all in the aftermath of de-Stalinization and the ultimate collapse of the Soviet Union. In this case, because we're looking at a Soviet-era map and we're talking about a Soviet-era development, I thought it appropriate to include the names of these places when they were in existence at this time. So Leningrad, Moscow, Stalingrad really make up the sort of political and economic heart, at least in urban areas, of the Soviet Union. And they are very much on the Western sort of realm of the USSR. And the Soviet Union is a massive entity, as you can see, and it comprises Europe and Asia. But the sort of urban centers and the political centers are really located in these areas. Of course, Leningrad, St. Petersburg, where the Bolshevik Revolution began. The Stalin White Sea-Baltic Canal, which is today just called the White Sea-Baltic Canal, is approximately right here, coming from the White Sea here over to Leningrad or St. Petersburg. And I have this here because the Stalin, and it was originally called the Stalin White Sea-Baltic Canal, was the first major sort of building project of the gulags under Stalin. And so this kind of marked one of the biggest and most significant building projects at the beginning of the Stalin era of the Soviet gulags. The Ural Mountains, very important geographical feature of the Soviet Union and Russia in general, is right here. And the Ural Mountains, they're not tremendously high mountains like the Alps, for example, or or the Himalayas or something like that. But the Ural Mountains really makes the dividing point between Eurasia, and Asia. And the Ural Mountains are very remote. They're on the frontiers of Siberia, which of course is this area that you see out here, these far-flung reaches in Asia. But the Ural Mountains are associated with a great deal of wilderness area. During the period of Stalin's power in the Soviet Union, the Urals were also one of the sites of an overwhelming level of banditry in the Soviet Union. So armed sort of gangs that used to, in some cases, were powerful enough to overpower local police and would sort of make their way on robbing and thievery, banditry in the Ural Mountains, which was a real serious problem from the standpoint of the Soviet Union. By far, the most significant problem from the standpoint of the Soviet leadership. The Ural Mountains also is the area of some of the Gulag camps. There were Gulag camps and prisoner of war camps all over Russia. But the worst of the sort of forced labor camps are usually remembered as in the greater stretches of Siberia, though there are Gulag camps and prisoner of war camps after World War II across Russia. So there were numerous Gulag camps in the Ural Mountains area, and then of course there were also numerous Gulag camps in Siberia, these work camps that were incredibly harsh and which people were often worked to death, but yet during the age of Stalin provided basically a fundamental sort of part of the Soviet economy. The gulags, and this is the factoid for this week, and maybe I'll give you 2 points since this is a really long video. Our knowledge in the West of the gulags, why the gulags are so basically commonplace in at least some realm of thought in the Western world, is largely because of a work called the Gulag Archipelago, which was written by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And this was a work of an individual who had experienced the gulags and leaves Russia and writes about this experience. And it's known as the Gulag Archipelago. And Solzhenitsyn kind of described the gulags as like like a country within Russia that was sort of a world unto itself, but one that was inherently, nonetheless, fundamental to the Soviet state under Stalin. So the factoid for this week is Alexander Solzhenitsyn and the Gulag Archipelago, an incredibly important document in the West, published in English, that ultimately documented the brutality of basically a work slavery system in the Soviet Union. Email me that factoid no later than Wednesday by midnight. Let's have a great week. I'll see everyone in the discussion forum, and I hope you enjoy the reading.